Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliot could be facing a lengthy suspension as reports continue to surface about the NFL's still ongoing investigation into previous instances where he may have been involved in domestic violence situations. Now, the one that comes to mind for a quick contextual background was what happened over the summer in which he was pretty much blackmailed or trying to get framed. There was text messages. We have some of those text messages, I believe a screenshot of it, which is an interaction between the two girls that were involved in a fight with each other, one of which was claiming to say that Ezekiel Elliot was pulling her out of the car and there's bruises to show for it, and they never were able to prove because the information was very inconsistent, as the police department said. However, the NFL is still investigating other claims of domestic violence in relation to Ezekiel Elliot, and it comes up at a very inopportune time for Ezekiel Elliot and another lose-lose situation for the NFL.
Yeah.
So the NFL's domestic abuse policy, as which Roger Goodell stated back in 2014 when he reworded a lot of it, even though this is one of the things that we talked about last week with Richard Sherman and why he says that there needs to be a more concrete policy. So this was back in 2014 when they started to renegotiate how they're going to work on domestic violence suspensions. Effective immediately, violations of the personal conduct policy regarding assault, battery, domestic violence, or sexual assault that involve physical force will be subject to a suspension without pay of 6 games for a first offense, with consideration given to mitigating factors as well as a longer suspension when circumstances warrant. Mitigating circumstances will be considered, and more severe discipline will be imposed if there are aggravating circumstances such as the presence, use of a weapon, choking, repeated striking, or when the act is committed against a pregnant woman or in the presence of a child. A second offense will result in banishment from the league. An offender may petition for reinstatement after 1 year, but there is no assurance that the petition will be granted. These disciplinary consequences apply to all NFL personnel. So, Francis, why do I say it's a lose-lose? Well, for one, given how bad that they handled the Josh Brown situation, another example of them just mishandling the domestic violence policy in the NFL, it puts the NFL under a spotlight that they don't, again, want to be under. And the other side of the lose-lose is if they do suspend Ezekiel Elliott for any amount of time, it's a little bit unfair given the fact that the NFL is not a police department and they are not their investigative team is weird, to say the least, given the fact that they...
Do they have an investigative team?
It's not that they have an investigative team, it's the fact that the police department did not bring up charges. There was no charges put on Ezekiel Elliott because they couldn't find consistent information, and the stories were just a he said, she said.
Okay.
So if there's no proof, if there's no evidence, which in our justice system... You're innocent until proven guilty, and that's how it's supposed to be.
And that's what I was going to get to. But the NFL has suspended that right for their players because there's not a case. You're guilty and you're still not proven guilty in the NFL, as we see with Josh Brown. So what has happened is that the train wreck, which is the Ray Rice situation, the Josh Brown situation, the handling of domestic violence in the NFL, has made this now what is going to happen, is that even if there is no concrete evidence, because they mishandled such events in the past that clearly had evidence, they never seen the Ray Rice tape. They never knew about Josh Brown. It means that when it comes to Ezekiel Elliott, innocent or guilty, you need to now handle the case with as much seriousness as possible, and he may be suspended for something that he's not done, or he may be suspended for something that he has done and they're investigating. So as much as it's going to suck to be a Dallas Cowboys fan, you know what I say? I don't care. I don't care about what is going to go on now, because this is what's going to happen to the NFL when they have not understood the severity of this case. When you don't understand the severity of a real problem that's plaguing your league, such as domestic violence, and you don't handle it with as much care as possible, this is going to be the consequences now. Yeah. Where someone like Ezekiel Elliott, if he has done it or hasn't, police evidence, they didn't find enough to follow up on those charges in the first hand. The NFL is stuck between a rock and a hard place because they now don't know whether they can handle a suspension if he's not guilty, or they wait and then it finds out he may be guilty and they haven't handed out another suspension again, which all stems from how poor they handled Ray Rice and everything that followed suit with that.
Yeah, where I disagree, though, is that I think the NFL should have dropped their investigation the second that the police said that they're not pursuing an investigation. Mm-hmm. The NFL is not the police. They are responsible for their employees. They're responsible for their actions, just like at our own companies. Our company is responsible for us. However, if there are charges brought up against the player and the police look into it and then they say, we couldn't find anything that says that you have performed these acts of domestic violence, you're done. Their charges are dropped. I don't think the NFL should ever consider continuing an investigation that's not their business anymore.
Yeah.
If it were to come up again, if the police were to say, we are reopening the investigation, that's when the NFL should be striking down quickly and saying, you open up the investigation again, this is on the police's hands, so we're going to suspend you a game now because we don't want any of it being associated with domestic violence, as they shouldn't. But in this case, unfortunately for the NFL, there's going to be a big outrage for the fact that if the NFL finds that they're going to suspend him for, they say, a lengthy amount. Jerry Jones isn't concerned with it too much, but the sources and the articles say it could be a lengthy suspension.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means, given the fact that the NFL doesn't know what lengthy means. In their mind, it could be a game, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, 6 games, whatever the policy says. So, in my opinion, if the police are not continuing an investigation, Zeke should be free to go in this case.
You said you disagree, but what did I say that I
No.
agree? No, because I think the person who's going to be held accountable is the NFL.
Right, but I don't think the NFL should be suspending him.
But I'm saying,
regardless what they find in their own investigation, like unless they were to find concrete evidence, which would be, again, shocking to me given the fact that I think the police do their jobs better than the NFL when it comes to investigative work.
Yeah,
I would safely assume, and I would pray to God, and I'm not even a religious man, that the police do a better job of investigative work than the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you're going to place blame on anyone, it is the NFL. That's what I mean. I don't agree with what they're doing. They're just now, they don't even understand themselves what they should be handling because of how poorly they handled the case in the past. They haven't been strict enough. So this is them trying to be even more strict. This is them like, we're gonna now because we dropped the ball on those cases. Now we're gonna put it up. But this is the thing: we don't know what I'm not gonna sit here and say that Ezekiel Elliot is going to be innocent either because I don't know the details. The police haven't furthered in the investigation, so I will take that as enough of a case to say, okay, maybe he's going to be the one that's going to be harshly punished in the wrong way in comparison to what should have been handed out initially to Ray Rice and Josh Brown and many others who followed suit with that. So it's their mismanagement that's now going to come back and everyone's going to scrutinise them, and deservedly so. They deserve to be scrutinised. The NFL don't know how to handle their own players and they don't know how to preserve the safety of their own players on the field or others who are coming into interaction with physically aggressive people off the court.
Right.
Off the field.
Off the court? Off the field.
Field, court.
I firmly believe that this offseason, again, I think I've brought this up a couple times to wrap up. If the NFL can take the time to put together a committee of 10 former coaches, players, and referees to decide on what a catch is, they can put together a committee of 10 people to iron out their actual domestic violence policy. And it's the swift action that needs to be made. When things like this happen in 2014 and Josh Brown comes, and even though honesty is always considered the best policy, when you say that you did these things and there's proof of it, you suspend immediately. If you say in your policy that it's a 6-game suspension and then it's banishment from the league, you got to hold up to your own policy. And if the NFL could follow that, and I love the response, by the way, from Goodell, where he says it's a lot more complicated than it seems.
Oh yeah, thanks for. It's
man.
too complicated for us.
It's really not that. It's really not that complicated.
Us peasants don't understand it. Well, it's the same thing as the people that came out after Ray Rice, Goodell himself, and the co-owner of the Giants was like, it's really eye-opening, this case. Well, clearly it wasn't eye-opening because you handed out Brown a 1-game suspension when he found out. When he admitted to the first case, you handed him a 1-game suspension. Then you gave him a new contract when you were aware that he'd reported it several times that he was abusing his wife. Right. So it clearly wasn't eye-opening. So, these are just things they say to please people.
I mean, again, I don't know if this is Ezekiel Elliott being a target, and we don't know. I mean, this is something that the NFL is going to continue to look into, but he was framed, or originally trying to be framed, for the one instance over the summer, and also they was painted in a bad light for shopping in a marijuana store.
Yeah.
Or not shopping, visiting a marijuana store, where it was legal. So he will continue to play for right now. You just hope that the NFL's investigation is open. So you don't know if in week 14, if they feel like, you know what, we got to do it, it could have drastic implications on the Cowboys season, and that's not even fair to the Cowboys as a whole in general. Comment below, like, favorite, subscribe to the channel. Goes a long way. Let us know your thoughts on the NFL's investigative work and what you think the domestic policy should be in the NFL. At France_Maxwell, at JaSonRuben91. See you next time.